This episode is about manifestation through making a magic list and planting the seeds of self-belief. Welcome to the Plumb Podcast. This is a podcast for possibility.
We begin from a unique starting point and the conversation unfolds from there. We express authentically and we create the space for you to do the same.
Hi, I'm Rosalee.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Plumb Collective.
The starting point for this conversation is a Plumb Practice session that we recorded about 6 weeks ago. What happened during our writing and conversation really was a starting point for us. We were anticipating things unfolding and excited and curious about what might happen. And now from this position, 6 weeks later, we can say that, some things have shifted and things have unfolded in ways that are really exciting. We're excited to share our writing and conversation with you. We talked more about what Plumb Practice is in episode 6 of the Plumb podcast. If you want to hear more about what Plumb Practice is all about, listen to episode 6, and we'll also have some information in the description box and show notes of this episode with links to where you can find more information.
Manifestation is kind of a buzzword. It's something that we hear people talking about and their ideas of the right way to do it, and don't do it like this, but do it like this. And it sometimes can feel serious and that you have to do it the right way for it to work.
You gave like a really simple formula in your writing, and then a very clear action step or a concrete thing that you can do that's not just believing. It's more than that. I don't think when you started making the magic list that you thought it necessarily had anything to do with manifestation. It just felt like something that would be beneficial or something that you wanted to try, something that just felt right to do.
When I explore a concept for myself, I test it out. I collect data. I'm looking at how things feel and what can be adjusted. I'm always refining and expanding as I go along. In this episode, you will hear me at 1 week in to my data collection on this idea of a magic list and how that could improve my connection with myself and what is possible for my life. Now we're 6 weeks out, and at this current moment, I have 64 items on my magic list, and I really see how many of the things on my list are expanding in my life.
At the time that we recorded this conversation originally, I was excited about Rosalee's explorations with the magic list, and I was interested in it for myself, but I hadn't started it at all. Even though in the episode, you'll hear Rosalee say, I'm not peer pressuring you. Okay, maybe I am peer pressuring you to start a magic list. I eventually did start one. It does feel like something that has made a difference in how I see myself.
This episode is special to us because of our conversation about the magic list, but there's an extra special moment at the end that really is so important to both of us.
Rosalee has done multiple photo readings for me. And for my birthday this year, I said, if you want to get me a present, the present could be a photo reading. I would love that. Rosalee was excited to do it. But when my birthday rolled around, it just didn't feel like the right time to do it.
I do everything based off of feel. If it doesn't feel right, I'm not going to do it. I kept checking in with myself leading up to Sarah's birthday. I was like, now? Is it now? Nope, not now. And then after Sarah's birthday, I would check in every single day, and it just was a no. I kept having the feeling of I would know when the time was right, that something would click into place for Sarah, that then I would be able to do the reading. I couldn't do it until that felt right to me. I honored it, even though I wanted to give her her birthday present on her birthday.
All along the way, I was fine to wait, but it was with this like, I believe that it will be time at some point, but what is that going to be? How will we know? One thing that Rosalee has been saying to me for a long time that will make a difference for me is if I claim things about myself. And I'm game. I'm, willing to do that. And I also have been like, oh, okay, but something wasn't clicked into place for me. Rosalee knew that that was the thing that needed to shift or click into place, but in what way and what would be the catalyst for that? Totally unknown.
Nearing the end of this conversation, I can see it in my face, this acknowledgement of, oh, it's happening. It's right there. The shift in Sarah's energy happened during this episode, but Sarah didn't recognize it, couldn't see it yet. I knew that Sarah was right there, and that any moment she would recognize that, and I would be able to do her photo reading.
Near the end of this conversation, listen for the word blurt. That will alert you to the fact that we're into this part of our conversation that is the start of something. We plan to share more about what happened and what unfolded in upcoming episodes, but this feels like a really great starting point for telling that story.
This episode is overflowing with magic. If you want to add an extra something special, here are some things to listen for. We like to have fun. One of the big reasons why we say healing doesn't have to be hard and feeling your feelings can be fun is because we approach knowing ourselves and healing with this idea of gameplay, of fun and lighthearted and silly adventure. If you are interested in joining us in that fun, you can think of this list of items as a scavenger hunt, things to listen for as you listen to this episode.
I'm on the verge, to the heart of the matter. I make the dictionary sound like poetry, and the blurt. We hope you enjoy listening to our writing and conversation and that you experience the magic of the magic list. We begin by listening to Rosalee's writing.
I'm going to start with my bread first. I'm on the verge. Verge is a rod carried as an emblem of authority. Emblem, a device, symbol, or figure used as an identifying mark. I'm loving my magic list. I started it after our last session. I wrote it in my bread. A hypothesis. What do I like about myself? Past, present, and future. Plant the seeds. I will bloom. I was aiming to write one thing I like about me a day. As of this moment, I have 42 magical things about me. I'm keeping an ongoing list in my phone. When I think of something I like about me, I write it down. No pressure, no rules. Okay, maybe one rule. It has to be written from my perspective. Sarah said beautiful things about how when I read definitions, it inspires her and she hears the word differently. I love knowing that, and I wanted to add it to my magic list, but I had to think about how to phrase it so it wasn't her acknowledgement or compliment, but how I feel about myself. The first item on my list is something Sarah said, but I needed to feel it for me first. The first item is, and I'm going to keep the rest of the items on my magic list private and just for me, but I am willing to share my first item on my list. The first item on my magic list is, I make the dictionary sound like poetry. Name it, claim it, put it on the magic list, watch it grow. I said it, and I believed it when I said it without evidence. Now I have 1 week of data, evidence, proof. It is magic. I am naturally looking, noticing, and observing myself and how people respond to me. Looking for the good, not in quotations, be a good person, good, but feel good. What me, Rosalee, personally likes about myself. And it's just right there, showing up. I'm not working hard. I'm calling it in. I'm available for it. I'm also naturally noticing what I like in others. I am generally a complimentary person. I like expressing what I like in others, and it comes naturally to share it with the person. This week, I noticed it even more, and more specific noticings, more thoughtful, more meaningful observations of others too. And I have received wonderful, loving, kind comments on TikTok. Nothing hateful, as of this moment anyway. When I read my writing from the previous session, I was shocked how the specific wording and the definitions match up to my experience this week, as if I wrote it into being. I am excited to continue my magic list. I'm on the verge. A rod carried as an emblem of authority. Emblem, a device, symbol, or figure used as an identifying mark.
I'm going to give my witness statement in a moment where I'm going to share what I sensed and what I felt as Rosalee read their words. And to anyone listening, if you want to take a moment to notice what you sensed and what you felt as you listened, you can do that as well. Okay. This writing was extremely beautiful. I felt just moved in listening to it and just really happy for you that just 1 week ago, 7 days ago, you made this declaration to yourself that you were going to do this magic list and you were going to write one thing a day. And you have 41. Did you say 41?
42.
42. So you have 42 things on your list and it's only been 7 days. I think that's incredible. It's remarkable. And to just hear how much it's affected you over the course of 1 week in multiple ways, it's so simple. It's a simple idea. You wrote it very simply, and it sounds like it's executed very simply as well. Like it's been easy. Last week, I said that the way that you wrote about it sounded like a children's book or just a very simple instruction. And that has carried through in your experience is really cool. I feel very inspired by what you've shared because it's just cool for you. And I'm hearing it for myself as well, having been inspired last week and having had heard you talk about it all week. Every time you've mentioned it in our conversations, I've been like, oh yeah, the magic list. I want to try that. And I'm getting to watch it unfold. And that feels really special. I also noticed that your bread contained definitions again. And I'm very curious for you to say a little more, if you want to, about what those definitions felt like as you wrote them down and why you followed them. Just anything you want to say about the process of those definitions, because hearing you talk last week about the specific definitions was just really cool. And it's why I said the dictionary sounds like poetry when you read it. So I'd love to hear more if you want to share.
Yes. My prompts were magic list, I will bloom, and I'm on the verge. If we're not doing plum practice, it's maybe unusual for me to sit down and write a long form writing. I am making this magic list, but to sit and write about the experience of the magic list probably wasn't going to happen except for in this moment. And so I immediately knew that that was going to be my prompt, but I really liked the other two as well. And so the fact that I will bloom just naturally came into my writing because it was also a part of the bread. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I just thought, okay, well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. And then when after I witnessed this writing, I was like, I really am on the verge of something. It really does feel that way. And then I went, what is a verge? That's just a phrase, and I know what it means. It's on the brink, or there's definitions that we know. There's also the shoulder of a road, and it said British. So it's like, I don't know if that is a phrase that people use. This boundary or this line of demarcation between the road and off-road. There's something about that that's interesting. So I was looking at all of the definitions and then I just thought, oh, that's cool or that's interesting or whatever. But I didn't really think it was going to be something that I would write down or use as, or that prompt would get put in there. I just was like, what actually is verge? It was just a natural inquiry. And then when I read a rod carried as an emblem of authority, I was like, are you kidding me that this is the lightning rod?
Oh,
You did? Oh, yeah.
no, I didn't catch that. I mean, when you read it, I was like, that's very just, I mean, that's why I'm asking you about it because I'm like, where did that come from? So, oh my God, I'm so glad I asked you because it's important to connect that dot.
Yes. Okay. So that just, your face made me excited. So it was a rod carried as an emblem of authority. So to have the lightning rod be the starting point, and then in the second session to write that I want to experience the good without the charge of hate. On the verge is a definition from fix, and I got to fix from charge. So it went charge to fix. Fix had on the verge. And then for today, for verge to be bold and be like, what is the definition of that? And then for it to be a rod carried as an emblem of authority just felt too specific and wild to not document. And then emblem also stood out as bold to me. And emblem is a device, symbol, or figure used as an identifying mark. And so the fact that the lightning rod is what started it, and then for what unfolded from the lightning rod to then be something that to me feels like an identifying mark of time and my life, it feels huge to me, even though this is a very simple practice. Really not thinking about it or striving for it. I just have chosen, I've decided, I've said that I'm looking for things I like about myself, and they're just showing up. They're just there. It's just really, it really feels magical. I feel really happy that I had this opportunity to complete or follow up from our last session in this way that feels like I do have data. I have collected 42 items, making it short and tight and just clear, direct. I like this. No explanation, no disclaimer, or trying to make it seem like, oh, well, I need to be humble, or I need to be. It's not about that. It's about me liking things about me. And there is also something about writing it down, and that I've just declared that anything on this list will grow. So it makes me really intentional about my language and about what I'm choosing. I might think other things that I like about myself, and until I really feel good about it for myself, where I'm like, I do like that, then it's going on the list. And that happens in seconds. I did end up with the phrase that you did say to me. They're your words, but I took a pause, a moment to just go, okay, this isn't just a direct quote from Sarah. Do I agree? Do I feel that way? You said a bunch of things. I could have picked any of the phrases, but it was specific that poetry, and that's really from everything. That's what it is.
I loved hearing you write about how you worked with that to make it be from your position and how important that piece is. I love that you are calling it your magic list, because it just turns it slightly. I mean, it is reprogramming your subconscious. That's another way that people talk about it. But this way of talking about it, it's just light, simple, fun. We're not talking about psychology. It's just this. And then watch what happens. With the requirements, if we're saying there's rules, the rules being from your position, and that you're intentional about the language that you choose, because it matters.
I'm not even talking about loving myself. If you're going from having self-talk that is hard on yourself, or that you're critical of yourself, my self-talk was fairly gentle to begin with. And I'm not even collecting data about that at this point. I think for me specifically, that people that said they loved me also had hateful behaviors and hateful words towards me. Love is too complicated, or it's too far, it's tangled, too many other things attached to it. But to go to, what do I like about me? I agree with you that it's like a children's book. Did we hear this in preschool and kindergarten? This isn't new, but we need to hear it again. We need to be reminded of it, instead of thinking, what does somebody else think about me? And is that true from their perspective? To really tune in and go, yeah, do I like that? Do I want this? Does it feel good to me to know this about myself? Every single person I know, I believe it in my bones after this 1 week with this, that every single human being, no matter how badly you think about yourself in this moment right now, there is something you like about yourself. I know it. Being willing to see it, being willing to name it, and being willing to claim it and write it down.
Yeah.
I have enough belief in this process for all of us. So you don't have to believe it. I just went, well, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try it. And now I'm a believer. I feel strongly about it.
I think having it be what do I like makes it way more accessible and easy, just easy. It doesn't have to be so serious either. Whereas if you're claiming love, it feels like it is a totally different category and is way more serious. And this is just these light little things, and it could get serious. Some of them might be very profound. It'll have a whole range of things. I'm talking like I know, because I have not
You
done
are
it.
right. That has been my experience.
But I'm excited about it. And it was just very cool to have this series of 3 sessions and for you to go through this time, a series of concepts and writings that are all connected and they feel like they brought you to something really cool. I mean, it brought you to it in the last session. And then this, I really enjoyed hearing you talk about how you wouldn't probably have written about your experience with the magic list like this without Plum Practice. And you did. And it sounds like this exercise was really valuable to you in seeing just how important this is. And you knew that, but the writing has solidified it in a cool way.
Absolutely. If I wouldn't have had the space or taken the moment to reread it, it could have just floated completely away. And that would have been okay. But I'm so glad it didn't. I'm so glad that we are doing this practice and that it does work. It really works. And it just feels exciting for me to experience it in my inner life. Maybe I don't look or sound or seem any different to anybody else. I mean, I think I do, but that would be okay if nobody else noticed or if I kept this private to myself, that would be okay. But the fact that I do feel different, I feel like something has shifted and I didn't work at it. I wasn't effort. It's just shifting seemingly on its own, but there is something that I'm doing. That also feels powerful because that's like a how-to. Okay, well, you could try this. It does work. Here, here's a how. And if you don't want to, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, do you feel complete?
I do. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now I'm going to read, and after that, Rosalee will give their witness statement. Starting with the bread. Forgetting feels like darkness, like blacking out. Remembering is window closed, eyes open. Working it out. I am working it out for myself. Sometimes I write about it. Sometimes I talk about it. Sometimes I think about it. The thinking is light, breeze blowing through the windows. The curtains flutter. It's okay. I haven't wanted to talk to the person about whom I've been working this out. I go back and forth. One day, I think having a conversation is what is going to happen. It feels like it's inevitable. It must happen. Not in a forced way, but in a chosen way. A way I've chosen because I've worked it out. Then the very next day, I feel sure that I won't have a conversation. It's not what I want. I am working it out on my own without that person's involvement, and then I'll fully release it. Then the next day, I'm back to thinking the conversation will happen. It seems every day the pendulum swings that wildly. A full 180 about face. I have not found this to be frustrating or disorienting or exhausting. Every day, the new choice feels right. I don't think it's going to change. And then it does. Rather than exhausting or frustrating, I find this back and forth a little funny and also fascinating. I'm working it out. I've made some lists of what happened and how did I feel. I've replayed the initial conversation and inserted different dialogue. I've had back and forth conversations between my human self, who feels things, and my soul self, who knows things. I've been working it out. The key is, I think, right now, in noticing the stillness within when I'm feeling things or thinking things that may start to feel like my inner landscape is getting chaotic, a storm rolling in, curtains whipping instead of gently fluttering. I still have command over my experience. I can close the window. I can pause. I can connect to the stillness within. And now, the next thing I always write, how? How do I remember that? I know the answer is practice. And I do practice. I am practicing. I notice and observe. But I feel like it's not enough. I still forget. And that's okay. When I've forgotten, I don't know what I've forgotten until I remember. Does the gap, the time spent unaware? I stopped writing. I wanted to ask a question, but it dissolved before I got to the end of it, before I got to the heart of it. Forgetting feels like darkness, like blacking out. Remembering is eyes open, window closed, eyes open. Now, Rosalee will give their witness statement where they'll say what they sensed and felt as they listened to me read. And you can take a moment to notice what you sensed and what you felt as you listened.
I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I'm such a fan of your writing. You just create the most beautiful visuals with your words.
Well, thank you.
The part near the end where you're saying, could you maybe read it to me? The part where it's about it dissolving,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
where it's dissolving, and then the heart.
When I've forgotten, I don't know that I've forgotten until I remember. Does the gap, the time spent unaware, I stopped writing. I wanted to write a question, but it dissolved before I got to the end of it, before I got to the heart of it.
It immediately had me go, okay, you're right where you're meant to be. This is my opinion. This is my witness statement. So I'm telling you that I believe that you were right where you're meant to be in this moment. If something is dissolving and getting to the heart of it, you are on a journey to your heart of it. If you're not quite at the center of it yet, that is okay. And you are working yourself to that position, to the heart of the matter. And then, of course, the fact that you're asking for a how just feels really incredible that I literally just said, well, here's a how. So I, find that kind of comical. And the fact that there's always some connection or a line between our writing that feels like, okay, they're connected. I didn't know that you were asking for a how, and then I answered your call, is what it feels like. And that the fact that they showed up in the order that they did also feels cool to me. It wouldn't be as magical if I heard your writing and then I went, okay, here's a how. There's something about the order in which things occur that also is special. So the fact that you're swinging back and forth between these seemingly opposites, today you're over here, tomorrow over here, to here, are you working yourself to Plumb, to a center point, to the heart of the matter?
No, am I?
Yes.
That's amazing. Okay, are you done? Because I want to say I want
Yeah.
Are you done? I loved everything you said. But my question will still remain. I love your answer, the answer that your writing provided. My question is, how do I remember? Okay. But then when I come into doing the magic list, I still have the same question. How do I remember to do the magic list? It sounds like it for you has become very organic. And so I guess I could just trust that that is what would happen. But my experience of remembering and forgetting has me preemptively being like, well, I feel that I will declare I'll do it. And then 2 days will pass. It will not exist for me. So, and I could try. And if that happens, it's okay. And there's always more opportunities. It sounds like I'm very rigid in my thinking. And I think parts of me are, sure. Like there is a part of me that is like committed to that belief. And there are parts of me that are like, yeah, but you could just give it a try. You could just see. And I do like that experience actually of I feel multiple parts of myself responding. I think in the past, a past version of me, the loudest voice would have been the more rigid thinker. So it is cool to notice that.
What was the part that you wrote that was like about being playful or silly or something like that?
It might just be that instead I don't so rather than exhaustion or frustration, this back and forth feels a little funny and fascinating.
Okay. So when you're talking about your resistance in the past, it reminded me of that part of your writing, because when I heard that, I immediately went, okay, when I connect to your energy from your initial photo reading to today, like whenever I'm connected to you and I'm listening, what it really feels like is I picked up the receiver and I'm listening to your conversation between your intuition, your soul self, and your human self. I'm just on the line going like, what's going on over here? What's the chatter? And I always, I say this every time, your intuition, how it sounds to me, how your energy sounds to me is unlike any other sound I've heard from any other person I've read for or connected to. It's so funny. It makes me laugh always. There's always like a flirtatious, silly, funny nature to your intuitive conversation with yourself. But this is the first time that I have heard you say something that points to that. And every time I've mentioned it, it's kind of like, oh, that's cool that that's your experience, but it doesn't seem like you really are like, because I'm like cracking up often. Like it really is funny to me. And so to hear you put it into words, it almost seems like you would expect it to be frustrating, or that you'd expect it to be something that's annoying or that you would want to stop. And instead you're like, that's kind of funny. And so it's also funny to me that I said this really profound thing and that you immediately went, okay, but I'm going to forget and how, whatever. That is a natural thing to be like, okay, okay, yeah, great, but like how do I actually implement that into my life? Let's pause and just go, did you just hear that you are working this out and that you're getting to the heart of the matter and that you are going to be in the center position of this story, and that that's what all of this is, and that that doesn't require remembering.
It doesn't.
No,
Okay.
it doesn't. And the fact that it may seem, okay, I really am peer pressuring you to do this magic list.
Okay.
It may seem like you writing down things that you like about yourself couldn't possibly have anything to do with you remembering how to whatever you're trying to remember. I am of the opinion that your memory is really incredible and that you do remember it when you need to remember. Like, I'm impassioned about it because I don't believe that remembering is that necessary or that required.
I think that the crux of the not remembering is that when things become chaotic internally or externally, that's when I forget. And what do I want to remember is very simple, is simply stillness, that exists, just that it exists. And I forget all about it. remembering to pause or remembering I don't have to respond right now. I get so caught. I mean, it's the whole thing. I've been talking about this and writing about this and talking about this for our entire relationship. I think I've gotten more succinct or clear about what I'm talking about, what I mean, what I'm looking for, what is this thing. And I also do think I have made progress in it as well. But I can think of very recent examples where I'm like, forgot it, totally forgot it. And I have also said aloud that if I remembered it all the time, then I would be this enlightened creature or I'd be dead. And I am neither of those two things at this point in time. I am a human person that experiences chaos at various times, internally and externally, and that it's understandable to forget. But that is frustrating to me.
I feel something.
Okay.
And I also feel like you're right there. You're on the verge. You are right there. It feels so possible. Not that there's something to achieve, but an awareness or awarenesses about yourself along the journey. I believe that you are in time. You are in the exact position to receive all of the things about this topic.
Well, I love knowing that. And I can't wait to experience it.
I know you want to know, so that's why I want to tell you when I feel something. And I want to just blurt it out to you. And I know that that's not the move.
Okay. So
But
there is something you could blurt?
Yes.
Oh, I hope at some point you tell me.
Oh, I definitely will. But even if I said it now, you couldn't hear me.
Okay.
It's things that we've talked about before, I've said before. It's not new, but it's just present. It's evident to me. And I think it is there. It's you recognizing it. It's not like there's like a place you need to get to or something you need to strive to. It's you naming it and claiming it. I hate to say it, but it's the same message, Sarah. It's the same message of claiming it. And so me saying that here's a how, and I could see someone listening to this conversation, and I think I actually mean you listening to me say this, that like, how could me writing a list of things I like about myself have anything to do with this long-standing belief I have about myself and forgetting this still point? That doesn't seem like that would be the answer to this question. And it is, though. But it is. It's a how. And you could go a lot of different directions. You could do a lot of different things. You could explore in a lot of ways. And I am of the belief, because of how it showed up and just how I feel about the shifts that are happening for me, that if something is right there, if it's in your energy, I feel it, it's present right now. You don't have anywhere you have to go or anything you have to do to see it, but there's something in you that if you could shift it, it's like if something's covering your eyes or there's something just obscuring this thing from your view in this moment, but it's there. It's not like you have a ton of stuff you have to do or accomplish to achieve it. You already have it. You just can't see it.
That makes sense. And I believe you. Very cool conversation.
I loved it.
Me too. We hope this conversation inspired you. If you are interested in experiencing this starting point for yourself, you can check out the Plumb Practice Series called The Lightning Rod, which is available on our website. And we'll put a link in the description box or show notes of this episode.
The Lightning Rod is also included in the Plumb Practice membership, and we would love to have you be a Plumb Practice member.
If you're interested in having a Plumb Point intuitive photo reading for yourself, where Rosalee can read your energy and share whatever messages come forward from your energy with you, check out the Plumb Point section on our website to book a reading.
Tune in next week for a new episode of the Plumb Podcast.
A new conversation will unfold from a new starting point. The conversation will be different, but we will always express ourselves authentically, and we create the space for you to do the same.